Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Austin Alves, and I'm going to be interviewing people to learn about different careers and how to live a meaningful and fulfilling life. In this video, I'm going to be interviewing Judge Kelvin Filer, who was born and raised in the city of Compton and continues to serve his home community by acting as a judge in the Compton City Courthouse. Please enjoy. So, I'll give you a little bit of background on this interview project that I'm doing. So,
Okay.
nowadays, kids are striving to go to the best college, right? They're doing everything, extracurriculars, all those grades, 1600 SAT, this and that, trying to pile up their list for college. Some are even going for like Ivy Leagues, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm doing some of it too,
Mm-hmm.
mock trial and even other extracurriculars at school, trying to keep my grades good. But sometimes I stop and I think about what's the whole purpose for this. You want to
Mm-hmm.
go to a good college to get a good education, to get a good job, to make
Mm-hmm.
money.
Mm-hmm.
So you do all this to make money, assuming that having a lot of money will be sort of the ease of all burdens that'll give you a good, easy life. But obviously, that's not true. There
That's
are
true.
different ways, different kinds of lifestyles. So I'm going around interviewing people from different careers, professions, people
Okay.
who've lived different lives, just trying to learn about what is a meaningful life like for
Okay.
different
Okay.
people.
Sounds
So,
good.
before we get started, um, is it okay if I post this interview on YouTube?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you so much. So
You're very welcome.
now we'll just get right into it. So could you do a short little introduction of yourself, who you
Sure.
are, your background for the video?
Sure. And feel free to interrupt me because otherwise, as you already know, and as my daughters
Mhm.
constantly remind me, I will talk forever. So I apologize in advance. But my name is Kelvin Filer, and I'm currently a Los Angeles Superior Court judge. And I sit in the Compton Courthouse. And I'm always proud to say in any introduction that I was born, raised, and educated right in Compton. And I just feel blessed that my entire legal career as well as my entire judicial career has been right in the Compton Courthouse. And so I really feel that that's a blessing, mainly because it gives me the opportunity to say, both verbally and just by being there and being involved in the community, that I came from Compton and I'm living my dream. So to the students, you're from Compton, you live in Compton, but don't let that make you think that you have to settle for anything less than what you want in your dreams. So that's part of the reason why I'm proud to have met you and happy and glad to be on the stage.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first question, um, some of these I may have asked you already, I
That's
don't
okay.
recall, but when did you first know that you wanted to pursue a career in law?
I was in the third grade, 9 to 10 years old. I was attending Rosecrans Elementary School. Both of my parents were very involved in the Compton branch of the NAACP. They both were founding members, and my father was the president. My mother was the secretary. So the meetings would be held in our home. Not They didn't have office buildings at that time for the headquarters. The headquarters was whomever happened to be the president. Your home was the headquarters for the NAACP, the Compton branch. And so I would sit and listen and hear my father and other members, Douglas Dollarhide, Doris Davis, Ted Baskerville. I'd hear them talk about these different strategies they were going to do. And they would always say, what did the lawyers say about this? Or did the attorney sign off on this particular strategy? So right away in my mind, I said, who was this lawyer person? So I asked my father, I said, Daddy, what's an attorney? Who's a lawyer? And he told me what a lawyer does. And he told me that he was actually going to law school, that he wanted to be a lawyer. So right away, I said, I'm going to be a lawyer as well. And that's when I started carrying my briefcase.
If you didn't have this sort of experience, do you think you still would have pursued a career in law, or you might be somewhere totally different today?
That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever been asked that question before, to be very frank. Uh, I can't imagine myself doing anything else unless, I had grown to be 5 and I was playing basketball
Mm-hmm.
and coaching or teaching maybe. But even with that, no, I can't see myself doing anything else other than being involved in a legal arena, to be very frank. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a great question, man. I've never been asked that before. I'm going to have to think that one through.
Mm-hmm. What was your experience in law school like?
Law school, I went to UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley is one of the top law schools in the nation and is one of the top law schools in the nation. I also got accepted to UC Davis, UCLA, Loyola, and one other school, I think in San Diego, Thomas Jefferson, I think it was at the time. But I
Mm-hmm.
was told that Berkeley was one of the top law schools in the nation. My dad said, Scooter, that was my nickname, you got to go to Berkeley. But I was so determined to be a lawyer, and I knew that law school meant 3 years of working extremely hard, and then you have to pass the bar exam. So I looked at it as I was going to take things one day at a time, one step at a time, 1 year at a time. So I was not afraid. I was not afraid. And I put in the work, and I didn't get disappointed or I didn't get dejected when I wasn't quite getting what was being taught and what we were supposed to get from the cases. Because part of law school is to struggle, particularly that first year. Thank goodness I had people, my father in particular, who instilled that in me and told me the key thing is don't give up and just keep working on it. And I did. So I actually like law school. I at Berkeley, the class that I was in, class of 1980 at the time when my first year, we had the largest African American class in the history of Berkeley. Still is. We had 44 black students in that class, 42 of whom graduated. So 42 out of 44 graduated from law school. I met some friends that I'm friends with today. They're some of my best friends. Um, it was a wonderful experience. It was in Berkeley. I love the Bay Area. It's my second favorite area after Los Angeles. Uh, I was not, again, I wasn't intimidated by it. I knew it was a learning experience. So that's how I approached it. So once I got through the first year, I knew that I was going to make it through law school. So then I really put my effort in the second year. And the third year, we kind of like just cruising, getting ready for the bar exam. I coached the women's basketball team, the Balsa team. I played basketball, intramural basketball. So it was great. It was actually a great experience. I know that sounds strange, but I kind of liked it.
So you finished law school, you've passed the bar. What do you practice? What's the first thing that you're practicing?
All right. My dream was to have my own private practice in Compton with my dad because he was going to law school. He was trying to pass the California bar exam. And my brother, also my younger brother, we knew he wanted to go to law school as well. So our dream was to have a family law practice in Compton. Between my second and third year of law school, I worked for the State Public Defender's Office. That's an agency in California where they represent individuals who've already been convicted of a crime and they have a right to have at least one free appeal. So the court will appoint an attorney, an appellate attorney, to handle that appeal for individuals who've already been convicted. I was so enamored and amazed and moved by the dedication of the attorneys in that office during my summer vacation between the second and third year, working with them, seeing them, and seeing these dedicated attorneys who only want to do what was best for their clients. I said, man, this is such a great environment. So when I graduated, I felt I couldn't immediately go into my own private practice. So they agreed to hire me for 2 years. Now, I was worried because they offered me a job after I passed the bar. They said, "Oh, you're welcome to stay." And I said, "I can only stay 2 years." I think they were hoping that I was going to stay longer than that because, if you're new to a job, there's a period where they're working with you, they're teaching you, they're investing in you as a lawyer, and it's going to take longer than 2 years. But I tell you, I stayed 2 years and 3 days exactly. And then I opened up my own practice right in Compton. So, but I loved working with the State Public Defender's Office. I loved the challenge. I had an opportunity. Appellate work is a lot of brief writing. You don't necessarily interact with your clients, but there were down periods where I could go over and watch trial attorneys right across the street, and I did it every chance I had. Also, when I presented my briefs to the appellate courts, I would argue my cases, every single one of them, even though sometimes they would encourage you to maybe you want to waive war. No, I'm arguing every single one because that's just the way I was. I want to fight for my clients. I
Mm-hmm.
had a chance to argue and win a case for the California Supreme Court. I don't know if I mentioned it to you earlier, Austin,
Mm-hmm.
but the case of People versus Alonzo Taylor. The citation is 31 Cal 3rd 488. And I won that case that stands for the proposition that every defendant in California who is going through a jury trial has a right to wear civilian clothes in front of the jury. And that is the law.
Mm-hmm.
Every single criminal case in California relies upon that. Every single jury trial in California relies upon that. And that's my case. I was
Wow.
25 years old. So
So
that's
walk
what
me
I
through.
did my first 2 years, then opened my own practice.
So walk me through the timeline. State public defender's office, open your own practice, and then what's next from there? What are the next steps until you became a judge?
So then in opening my own practice, I was also an elected official. In 1982, I opened my own practice. A year before that, 1981, I was elected to the Compton School Board. That was part of my dream also to give back to the Compton community.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, gave me an opportunity to really network too and to get my name out there as a young man who's coming back to his hometown, who's an attorney. Opened up my practice right on Compton Boulevard. I hired my father as my law clerk. I hired my mother as my secretary slash office manager. My mother was great. I mean, she's the greatest secretary in the world, the greatest office manager in the world. My father was my law clerk. He would handle all my civil stuff. I immediately started taking cases all over in Southern California, but particularly in Compton and Long Beach, Inglewood, some of the LA courts, LA downtown courts. We had municipal courts at that time. I got on the panels, meaning that I would be appointed to represent defendants where there was a conflict of interest with the public defender's office. In doing this, I'm developing my skills as a lawyer, as a litigator. I'm learning how to try cases. And I'm actually developing my reputation amongst the judges as someone who's going to be prepared, someone who's always going to fight for the client, someone who's going to be civil to the opposing side. I was never mean, rude, or discourteous. I always did my best, and I never took anything personal because I think those are good qualities of being a good litigator. You aren't going to win all the time, particularly if you do criminal defense work, which is what I did. At the same time, I'm on the school board, so I'm making a name in the political arena as well. At the same time, my dad is on the Compton City Council, and he's very, very popular, very, very well known. And actually, before this, my father was really a well-known civil rights fighter. He really was in the whole Southern California area. He carried the California flag at the March on Washington. Every elected official in Southern California, they knew of my father.
Mm-hmm.
Knew of him for several reasons. Number one, because of his
Hey,
work.
Judge, I'm gonna have to interrupt you a little bit right here.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So back to going all from there. At what point did you know, or what point, how was the transition like from an attorney? So you had your private practice, you
Private
employed your
practice.
mom, your dad, and then did you continue that? And then the next, you just went right into being a judge after that, or was there another step? Or
There's another step for me because I was hired as a court commissioner.
mm-hmm,
And a court commissioner is someone who's hired by the other judges to sit and do basically what a judge does, but your title is commissioner, not judge.
mm,
And they hired me because of my previous work as a litigator, as a lawyer. They knew that I could do it. They knew that I was committed. They knew that I was a hard worker. And so I was hired. Once I got on the bench as a commissioner and I saw what you do as a bench officer, and I said, this is pretty cool. This is good. Instead of being an advocate, now I'm making decisions. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to put in my papers to be appointed as a judge. Now, it is a little bit different when you're sitting on the bench because you aren't an advocate, you can't take sides. And once you're on the bench, you cannot give legal advice. But I still felt like I could be a positive force, that I could do good, that I could help administer justice. And plus, now I'm going to make sure that both sides got a fair trial because I'm the judge, and that's what a judge does. So it wasn't a difficult transition for me. It was a very interesting one. And it still is an interesting one because I'm still doing that now. So I
mm-hmm.
loved it.
What would you say the most important lesson is that you've learned while you were an attorney?
Uh, Always be prepared, always be on time, do your best for your client, and then let it go.
Mm-hmm,
Because otherwise, you don't want to. You want to have some balance in your life as well. You don't want to be embroiled in the case or be so
Mm-hmm.
involved in the case so that if you lose or if the judge rules against you or the opposing side prevails, then you start getting down on yourself. That's not healthy, number one. And number two, if you were to do that, then you would prevent yourself from being prepared and ready to take on the next case. Because when you're a lawyer, you're doing one issue and there's going to be another issue. You're doing one case and there's going to be another case. You're doing one client, and as soon as that's over, you're going to have another client ready for you. And you have to be able to represent each one of those clients at that moment, at that time. So you can't take things personal. You have to develop a thick skin. You have to learn to do your best, then let it go and move on to the next one. And that's something, again, I learned from both of my parents. And I know that's helped me to not only be a good litigator, but also to be, I think, a good and fair judge.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the most important thing that you've learned as a judge from a different
Patience,
perspective? Mm-hmm.
patience. When I first came on the bench, because I'm typically impatient and I hate to lose, but as a judge, you want to make sure that you are giving both sides an opportunity to present their case, to present their arguments. Uh, and sometimes you have attorneys that are not as experienced as other attorneys. They may not have the same courtesy. They may not have the same skills yet. They're learning. So you have to make sure that you're giving both sides a chance. Make sure that you not only are being patient, but that you are giving the appearance of objectivity. And that's something that I just honed in on. I actually wrote the words "be patient" and put it up on my desk and kept it there for about 4 or 5 years when I first came on the bench. And so I really think that that's the key thing for me. Just being patient, listening in to both sides, and then again, making a decision that you feel is best, making a decision that the law requires, and then you got to let it go because there's going to be another case in front of you as soon as you finish this one.
So you mentioned the appearance of objectivity, but are there ever times where you do feel like you're leaning slightly towards one side or the other?
No,
Not
not
at
me.
all.
No, not me. Now, that doesn't mean I can't empathize with what's going on because I have done that. And in some instances, I've kind of been concerned about whether, an attorney maybe did their best or did the best job they could. But I have to follow the law. And that can be the toughest thing. That
Mm-hmm.
can be the toughest thing, following the law. When I sentence individuals, I feel for that defendant. I feel for the defendant's family. Because the defendant's family, brothers, sisters, parents, they didn't have anything to do with the defendant being convicted, but now
Mm-hmm.
they are going to be hurt. They are going to be damaged because they aren't going to have their son or their daughter with them for decades. And that's tough. And I have to feel for the victims as well, who's sitting on the other side of the courtroom,
Mm-hmm.
who, because most of these cases are murder cases that I handle. And their son or daughter was killed for no reason at all. And they're gone. Father won't be able to walk his daughter down the aisle. Father won't have grandchildren. Those are tough situations, but I have to make sure that I'm appearing fair and objective, and that I am,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise, people will lose confidence in our system.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel confident, very confident, that that's what I do. I don't take sides.
Mm-hmm. The type of cases that you handle being murder cases, there are definitely some aspects or areas of the law that are more sort of emotionally tolling than others. Like these, like you mentioned, murder cases compared to like, if you worked for a company. Um, how do you know whether or sort of this area that you practice, it's not for everybody, is it?
Probably not. That's why everyone doesn't sit in criminal law. It's
Mm-hmm.
tough to hear cases when you're hearing about individuals who've been killed and their bodies been dismembered and put in a barrel and kept there for 4 or 5 days. It's tough hearing cases when you hear that the individual is accused of molesting and raping and just committing all sorts of horrible sex acts with children who are 5, 6, 7 years old. Children, multiple children, and they were supposed to be in his care. It's tough hearing that. It's tough hearing victim impact statements.
Hmm.
extremely emotional, where they're talking about what they aren't going to be able to do now because of the defendant's conduct.
So
So
my question is, at this point, how do you cope with that, deal with that?
that's where my inner strength comes from. That's where my faith comes in, and
Mm.
that's where my commitment to the job. I recognized early on that my job is to follow the law. And I've been a firm believer that the law is the strongest part of our system, the strongest part of our democracy, to be very frank. So I make sure that I'm doing my best. That doesn't mean I'm perfect, obviously, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that I'm following the law and being fair to both sides. And unfortunately, being fair doesn't mean that I'm going to give a break or I'm going to play favorites, because I don't play favorites. I'm going to follow the law.
So moving away now from the sort of career oriented questions, more to like the general, the meaning of life, the philosophical kind of questions. You've sort of been in Compton and LA County basically your entire life, right? Even when you went to law
Right.
school, you were in Berkeley, which is still California.
Yes.
Do you ever wish that you had sort of traveled around a little bit more to
No.
experience different areas?
No,
Or
I'm not a traveler. I never have. I do go on vacations every now and then, so I shouldn't say that I'm not a traveler. I do like that, but no, I had no interest. Partly because I come from a large family, and all my family members are here. I'm real close with all my brothers and sisters, and they're still in Southern California.
Mhm,
Our extended family was here in Southern California. We all grew up together. And my dad really instilled in all of us, man, this thing about Compton, with that,
mhm,
about doing something in Compton, helping Compton, giving back to Compton. So that's what I wanted to do. And again, I still love doing that. So no, I don't have any regrets at all. I kind of maybe wish I would have learned how to play an instrument other than the trumpet, because I love music, and I do believe that you should have balance. For me, balance is music, family. I like to read books. I love going to the movies. In fact, movies is probably the favorite thing that I do. I
mhm,
just go, and I have the pass where I can go as many times as I want. So
mhm.
one of my favorite pastimes.
If you could sum up all of your entire life, and this may be difficult, into one word, sort of a value, an object, a place, what would that word be?
I mean, I would hope it would be love, because I try and love my family. I adore my two daughters. I would do anything for them. I try and love the community. Um, but you know what? Helping. I get a lot of satisfaction when I feel like I've helped someone in any form or fashion. That's one of the reasons why I was earlier today at 1 o'clock. I went over and spoke to some little kids. Now they probably couldn't understand the point I was trying to make, but
Mhm,
I just think that if I touch one of them because they saw me, and maybe when they're thinking about what they want to do as a career, or maybe when the inevitable, unfortunate gang issue comes up, they say, "No, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way," which is what I did. Maybe you touch one life. So help, exhibiting love,
mhm,
family. Those are things that I hope my
mhm,
life exemplifies.
mhm. I've noticed this is sort of a commonality between people. I've interviewed one person before. He was a veteran of the Vietnam War, and now he's um even in the current times, he's still volunteering for a number of organizations,
Mhm.
one which I'm related to, which I met him through one of my extracurriculars, Key Club, a high school service organization. And I noticed that the sort of theme of love, of service, of helping others, why is that meaningful to you particularly?
Well, I really think I got it from my parents, man. Particularly my mother, man. My mother would help anybody. There
Mhm,
were 7 kids in our family. When I went away to college, when I would come back, invariably there was somebody living at the house who wasn't a blood relative. I said, "Who is that?" "Oh, that's Butch." somebody, my mother, just a young boy who was in her band, and she's just helping him out. But her thing was helping others,
Mm-hmm.
and I know my dad also believed in helping others, but my mother's, it was just, straight from the heart, man, and I know that she ingrained that in all of us, and definitely in me, and it's just I think all of us have an obligation to do that, to be very frank,
Mm-hmm.
and so in some form or fashion. Otherwise, you're being selfish, and I hope that I'm not selfish, and I try not to be selfish.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one final question. So right now I'm 16 years old, going into my junior year of high school. So what is one piece of advice that if you could go back in time and talk to your 16-year-old self, what would you say?
Don't be afraid of girls. Ah,
That's a
oh,
good
in
one.
high school, I was too focused on sports and studying. I shouldn't, but have some fun. And I discovered that immediately upon going to college, which was a lot of fun. And I
Mm-hmm.
still focused on my studies as well, but I broadened my friends and put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So just have some fun. Don't take things serious, but always do your best. That's the key thing.
Mm-hmm.
Always do your best and then just let it go and keep moving forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Judge Filer, for doing this. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and have a
I
nice
will.
weekend.
Thank you very much, Austin. I
Thank you.
appreciate the fact that you are starting out already doing things for others, and that's important. Keep that attitude and keep that spirit going.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Okay, is that it?